What is going on, Lucid fans? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So we did hit a new 52-week low today. I want to talk on what the fear behind the scenes truly is and if it's justifiable. Outside of that though, we've been really on the edge of our seat waiting for Lucid to ramp up production, plain and simple. And an analyst is finally taking notice of that. So I want to talk about what that is, what that will mean for us as investors as well. Before I get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up and subscribe is always greatly appreciated. And with that, let's get right to it. So like I said, we did hit a new 52-week low, unfortunately today at $9.98. So the $9 range, unfortunately, is might be in our future potentially because there is a lot of fear. More specifically with this news that's been coming out. So as you can see right here, it does look like a lot of safety concerns coming from the Lucid owners forum. One of which is saying that they're basically losing power, complete power on the road. And that definitely is not a good image, especially more so for Lucid that likes to boast about a high quality product. So when it comes down to this, yes, it might be one singular kind of issue or whatever it might be. Unfortunately, the negative aspect of Lucid is, as I've mentioned in the past, they're not that transparent, plain and simple. They could easily address this, but unfortunately, they don't. So what happens is people take this article and run with it. More specifically, Motley Fool. So now they're saying that there's dozens of customer complaints about the quality of Lucid electric cars. So again, it's just fear spreading fear, and especially it's one of those situations as well. If I tell you something, you tell something to something else, and whatever it might be, it's never the same exact story. So now dozens of customers are having complaints. So it's just one of those things piggybacking off of incorrect information. My own interpretation of this at least though. And now supposedly as well, Lucid isn't commenting and a possible recall might be in our midst. So again, this is definitely not good for Lucid, especially if this does hold out to be very accurate about the dozens aspects, because Lucid likes to boast, and they have been boasting, our high quality status of our vehicles. And if that does hold out to be very much incorrect, then unfortunately we might have a little bit more of a bigger issue at foot. But like I said, when it comes down to us ramping up, it's been very exciting. Based on Bear's Workshop, it does show that they're really putting the pedal to the metal and just getting out a lot of vehicles, as what us as investors truly did want. Because at the end of the day, as I've said, there's some risks involved with Lucid, but plain and simple, they just need to start producing vehicles. And it does look like Q4 is exactly what they said they're going to be doing. As the whole year, they've definitely said that it's the tail end of the year is when they're going to be ramping up production. And it does look like they are doing that. So when it comes to our upcoming Q4 earnings, I know it might be a little bit more premature to start talking about that. But again, it's one of those things that if you look at all the finite details behind the scenes, analysts are really taking note of that. So when it comes down to upcoming earnings, there are several different things, as I've mentioned in the past, that we look for as far as investors. Earnings per share, revenue, future guidance. Earnings per share, you can tell it's completely driven by estimates of analysts. So as you can see, it does look like two recent analysts did jump on board and give us a little bit lower of a estimate on our earnings per share. So the average estimate right now is negative 41 cents. What that is obviously entailing is we are opening up a lot more studios in Q4 and also a lot more production, faster production in the AMP facility, Saudi Arabia, and generally speaking about producing a lot more cars. It's very, very costly, plain and simple. So this is why we did get a couple downgrades on our earnings per share, which again, I'm not too worried about. As I've said in the past, earnings per share and revenue, you have to take that with a grain of salt. Yes, a couple years from now, people are going to be really looking at that exactly to show improvements, but as of right now, investors just plainly just want production. Production, that's basically it. So that's a little bit more of a change when it comes down to earnings per share. And then revenue. Revenue is everyone's cup of tea. This is exactly what people want. So you can see a massive amount of growth, more specifically even Q4 2023. But even technically looking at Q4 2022, you see a massive growth. And it does look like 3 new analysts jumped on board, giving us an average estimate of $400.67 million. So that definitely is a very, very positive light, especially more so looking at Q3 though. It was only 209.06 was the estimate, did come in on the actual with 195.46 million. So analysts are expecting a little bit more higher expenses, but higher revenue as a result of all these additional vehicles. So coming from an investor standpoint, this is exactly what we were asking for. I know based on the price action that's been happening lately, it's been sucking, plain and simple. I'm not here to defend that by any means, but the fact that analysts are starting to really look at us and us ramping up production, seeing that as a positive thing, that's the kind of takeaways that you want to do as far as an investor. It's very hard to catch the bottom, but what you need to do, trust your gut and due diligence. But as I always say, it kind of sucks in the short term. It is going to be very beneficial in the long term. As I say, especially more so in Lucid's case, you should not be investing short term with Lucid, plain and simple. Although, like I always say, these videos are for entertainment purposes only. But when you are investing in Lucid, you should be investing 2025, if not longer. That is when Lucid is going to make a substantial difference, especially more so once it does attain profitability, whether that be 2025, 2026, somewhere around there. But this is when you should be aiming for. More specifically as well, over and above all of that, Gravity. There's a lot of big vehicles and progress that is coming for Lucid in the future, and that is exactly when you should be investing for. So looking on the actual chart, on the negative stance of that is we are in no man's land. So what I mean by that is there's no known support whatsoever. There might be individuals out there saying that, oh, 950 is the bottom, 10 is the bottom, whatever it might be. Technically, when we're doing technical analysis, we look at previous data, historical data, to give us a good representation of the future. And obviously, we've never been this low. So there might be people out there saying and predicting things, but in reality, it could be as credible as opening up a fortune cookie, if you want to call it that. Stochastic is currently at 8, very, very oversold. So technically, looking on that, we are overdue for a very big rally. And looking as well, momentum, despite everything, despite the fear, number of retail investors are kind of holding strong for the most part. We are still technically below zero, so we are losing some investors as we have over the last couple of days, but for the most part, it does look like we've bottomed as far as losing any more additional retail. Looking as far as RSI as well though, 32, well below all the moving averages, so we do need to have a very good catalyst, whether it be some good economic data possibly, or just some positive news coming out for Lucid. There's a lot of individuals on Twitter that is completely saying that there's going to be a partnership being announced this week and a lot of positive news. Take that all with a grain of salt. If there is a partnership, then yes, obviously we will appreciate very much so based on that. But again, you have to do your own due diligence, plain and simple. A lot of people might be saying things, even myself. When I'm doing these videos, I like to list what I see and what I interpret Lucid as being the good, the bad, and the ugly. So you guys have to take that information, decide if it's credible or if it's just for entertainment. You guys ultimately decide. Over and above that though, like I said, there is a lot of fear in the market as of right now. And surprisingly enough though, I want to talk on short interest for a second, but I just want to show you this because normally when shorts are really severely getting into a stock, it usually means that there's a pretty big retail presence, which of course Lucid does have a pretty big retail following. But again, looking at this breakdown here, I do have a link to Interactive Brokers as well, link in the description below, and also I'll put it in the comments. So if you like a lot of this information, definitely click on the link, play around. But as you can see, roughly about the ownership breakdown of Lucid is around 70% for institutions and roughly about 20% give or take for retail. So given the circumstances, there's a huge amount of institutional backing, as I'm sure you and I are already aware of. So it's very abnormal to see that shorts are really manipulating and playing around with Lucid with such a big institutional presence. So it makes you question things overall though. So I want to give you a quick update on shorts. The short score as of right now is 87. The higher the number, the higher the likelihood of a squeeze happening. Utilization is 100%, showing 100% of the available shares to short are currently out. And right now there's $1.42 billion worth of shorts out there. So that is a pretty significant amount. So as I always say, on paper, everything is there for Lucid to have a squeeze. We just need a good catalyst and not so much negative news all the time. And as of right now, even though the broader market is going up, and we are going down, shorts are increasing their position, 621.68 thousand shares. So they're very doubtful of Lucid, plain and simple. But the grand total right now is 138.52 million shares. And technically over and above that, cost to borrow is starting to go down. So the average is 11.06. And so typically as well, that is a little bit more inverse. So this is probably justifying why shorts are going up a little bit more today. Short interest overall though is 23.28%. And that that is a percentage of the free float. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. But over and above that though, I just want to give you a breakdown of this. So this is all the transactions so far today on the dark pool. So a lot of big money has been getting in, not any substantial over $1 million orders, but pretty good amount. And even more so what happened after hours yesterday, there was a $9.69 million order. So once again, that might be a very positive thing. Someone knows something possibly. Again, it's one of those things that we are just left in the dark, unfortunately. Maybe bigger money or someone knows something that we do not. But again, this is what we have to take the data from, analyze and interpret. But with all of that, let me know your thoughts on Lucid in the comments below. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. I always greatly appreciate that. And with that said, I appreciate you guys watching. Let's all make a lot of money on Lucid.